Hello and welcome. Thanks to the West Africa Tourism Organization, World Bank, and the Gambia Ministry of Tourism and Culture for the opportunity to present this community tourism masterclass. My name is Brian Mullis, and I am the tourism specialist for the Ministry of Tourism and Culture-led and World Bank supported tourism diversification and resilience in the Gambia project. I have a well-rounded agenda for you today that includes defining community tourism in the business case, types of community tourism development models, success factors, the community tourism development process, and a few short case studies. Defining community tourism. Travel experiences that are owned, led, and run by communities, which could be in the form of nonprofits, cooperatives, social enterprises that benefit the host community directly. Community tourism typically takes place when there is an interaction between the host community and a visitor that leads to the sharing of an experience, product, or service. The need for community tourism. Indigenous peoples worldwide collectively manage or have tenure rights over 25% of the world's lands and 80% of its biodiversity. Many people who live in rural areas, particularly men, have to leave their homes and communities for work, often in the extractive sectors like timber harvesting, mining, etc., leading to out-migration rates from communities that can be as high as 80% or more in some communities. Tourism creates jobs and provides alternative or supplemental incomes in rural communities for men, women, and young people, thereby creating opportunities for them to stay within their communities and continue contributing. Market trends. The global community-based tourism market was valued, as you can see on my slide, at some 576 billion in 2022 and is expected to continue to grow. The sustainable tourism movement is similar. It doesn't matter what research that you've looked at over the past 20 years. More and more people are aligning their personal values with their purchasing decisions. And when price, quality, and convenience appear to be equal, an increasing percentage of these individuals will pay more for a service or experience that benefits local people and the places that they visit. There is also increasing demand, as many of you probably realize, for authentic and immersive experiences where travelers can engage with local communities, learn about their way of life, and experience that way of life directly within those communities. And then the last point, I think, is one of the most important. Communities really are the heart and center of tourism, and an increasing number of them are adapting to new norms and needs and working towards becoming more resilient and strategic in how they use tourism to improve resident quality of life. Community tourism benefits. Sustainable tourism is helping host communities flourish worldwide by improving the well-being of residents, visitors, and the environment. Community tourism protects and promotes heritage and culture. More and more travelers, again, no matter what research you look at, are looking for those authentic cultural and heritage experiences. Community tourism protects wildlife and its habitat. Similarly, nature-based tourism and wildlife tourism demand is continuing to grow. And community tourism economically benefits entire communities through its direct effects, where the visitor pays for a service directly to the enterprise or to the community. The indirect effects of the economic transaction, where that tourism business or enterprise or community cooperative buys local goods and services from other community members and other suppliers. And then thirdly, the induced economic impacts, where tourism businesses pay money to employees who use their salaries to buy local goods and services. So when you add up the three, the economic impacts within host communities is quite substantive. However, community tourism is difficult to implement. Many communities and villages that have attempted to start tourism enterprises have not been successful. And this is no surprise. If you look at entrepreneurship globally, a smaller percentage of startups are successful. I think some quote up to 90% of startups fail worldwide. In community tourism, there are a number of reasons. I won't go through all of them, but a few examples are unsuitable locations leading to inaccessibility for visitors, unsuitable design of lodging or other infrastructure, design of services to suit one's liking versus what the visitor or target market desires, and others. There are several primary types of community tourism models to think about, and there's no one size fits all approach. I'm going to share four different models with you, but just know that there are several other variations of these models. The first, the community-owned tourism venture. The community has full ownership, control, and responsibility of the venture, and a majority of the benefits remain within the community. The venture may be established through volunteerism without capital investment, funded by donor agencies or governments. It may be funded by accumulated community resources, and it may be financed through socially responsibility investment, or any combination of these sources, and often operates as a community cooperative type of model. The second, a joint venture or JV with private, public, and/or nonprofit partners. Partnerships between a community and a private sector operator or the government or nonprofit often takes the form of a joint venture. All partners that are involved contribute to the partnership, have a share of ownership, and receive benefits, and each have a clearly defined role. This model includes private-public community partnership models of community tourism. One example in South Africa is the Transfrontier Parks Destinations model, which is used in the South African national parks. The third model is the community tourism entrepreneurship model. This is when a community member, a group of community members, or several others enter into an agreement or business where they establish and run a tourism venture that is based or that relies on a community's natural and or cultural resources, and then they often pay the community a rent or a predetermined percentage of gross revenue. It's not really that significantly different of a model than that of a traditional small business operating in the community, but it's one that the community benefits directly by the nature of the business arrangement between the community and the enterprise being the differentiating variable there. And last but not least, the community enterprise linkages model. This is more of a value chain model where private sector owned tourism businesses, individual entrepreneurs, partnerships, and collectives in communities sell their products or services to external tourism companies or to visiting tourists. And that linkages model maximizes the involvement of the communities in the tourism supply and value chain. I think community tourism is strongest when this enterprise linkage model is incorporated into the three previous models that we just reviewed. Next, I'd like to share the top 10 success factors in community tourism based on my last 30 years of experience working in this space as an international tour operator, as head of a nonprofit, and as a tourism director for a national tourism board. First and foremost is access and visitor flows. How accessible is the community to existing tourism circuits? And what are the strategic visitor flows? And by that, I mean, who is coming to the community or to the area already? What are they going to do when they go to that area? Where are they coming from before they go there, and where are they going after? By understanding those strategic visitor flows, then it's easier to understand what the market demand is for a potential product within a given community that might be in relative close proximity to an existing tourism circuit. Secondly, community receptivity. It is paramount that community leadership, and optimally, though it might sound challenging, particularly important in smaller communities, that the community as a whole is interested in moving forward and getting involved in community tourism, particularly if the community is going to own and operate its own enterprise. Third, a commitment to self-help. See a lot of projects globally that are donor funded, and I think all of them have the best intentions, but if there is not self-reliance fostered as part of the community tourism development process, and communities aren't supporting and contributing their own labor or material resources to build, for example, an eco lodge, then they find themselves 100% dependent on donors and external providers. So you actually end up with a lower likelihood of a successful project if there isn't that shared commitment between the community and those that are supporting the development of community tourism. You also, number 4, have to have a government commitment. That sounds obvious, but what I mean here is having a long-term commitment. I'll share the government's role shortly, but one example is providing ongoing training to community members, mentorship in terms of business development and organizational optimization, and marketing support. Again, just a few examples that need to be provided on an ongoing basis. Number 5, independent tourism community and financial transparency. I think in terms of overall governance, it's important that there is a independent tourism committee that runs the enterprise, but that reports directly to community leadership, and that there is 100% financial transparency. Everyone in the community should optimally know where the money is coming from, how much money is coming in, and how it's being equitably distributed, including covering overhead costs to operate the enterprise in the first place. Continuing on with the top success factors, number 6, tourism development action and business plan. Oftentimes, national tourism boards and other partners will work directly with the community to develop these plans. Optimally, the community is actively involved in playing a role in developing the plans versus having a third party create the plans 100% for them. Number 7, this one might seem obvious too, a viable market-driven tourism product development. We have to develop products that are based on existing market demand, our existing primary source markets where most of our tourists are coming from, and the niche markets that we're catering to within those. And want to make sure that the product is also differentiated from those products that are offered in our neighboring communities. Number 8, open communication. This is incredibly important for things like bookings, as you might imagine, having access to email, etc., but also just maintaining open communication between the partners and addressing challenges head on before they become bigger than they need to be. So just paramount to maintain that. Number 9, partnerships and market linkages, partnerships with neighboring communities, market linkages with inbound and outbound tour operators and others, again, which can be supported and facilitated with and through national tourism boards and the local tourism private sector. And then number 10, peer-to-peer training and mentoring. It's always ideal to find successful local community tourism enterprises within your own destination that have been successful and that are willing to share their knowledge, lessons learned, and know-how with other communities. We find this peer-to-peer training is much more successful than bringing in outside consultants from, for example, another country or otherwise, because it just provides that deep impression of knowing, being in a similar situation as those communities that are trying to get community tourism off of the ground. The government's role. The government's role is to create a positive policy environment for community tourism in terms of tax incentives, for example, and concessions, helping communities evaluate the tourism potential if it exists or if it doesn't, supporting, if it does exist, the development of tourism products and plans, the business plans and action plans that I had mentioned previously, providing ongoing training and mentoring and marketing as noted. And then most governments do have a regulating and licensing role that optimally should include communities, but should include a component that helps communities in navigating that process, which can sometimes be quite complex. So having a division within the National Tourism Board, for example, that supports product development, including community tourism, is one way that a lot of destinations address that particular role. The private sector's role. Private sector, similarly to government, needs to evaluate the tourism potential, because optimally we want them on board at the inception if they see the potential. And if they are involved in the inception, then they can support the development of the tourism products that they in turn will incorporate into their own offerings and help to sell. So in helping to sell that, they'll establish market connectivity with their buyers, including outbound tour operators from primary source markets. Also, they can provide a capacity building support role, including various training that may be valuable to the community. Marketing and sales is mentioned, and then risk management and logistics management support in terms of offering visitors a seamless experience in working with the community and other suppliers to offer a single day or a multi-day itinerary. Next, I'd like to cover the community-led tourism development process in brief. First is a visitor readiness assessment. Visitor ready means the tourism business is fully ready to welcome customers and offer them a safe and memorable experience. There are a number of ways to evaluate readiness. I'll share a few of them. Number one, community members should be trained in guiding, catering, and how to manage a business, including managing bookings, the funds received, financial management that is, guest experiences, etc. Number two, the community tourism business should be accessible by radio, cell phone, or internet to receive bookings and guest information and to accommodate any last-minute itinerary changes. And then three, visitors should be made to feel welcome by the village, who should provide the best hospitality that they're able to their guests, so that word of mouth can increase and visitation will ultimately increase. Many communities will have a visitor code of conduct to help to support that third item there. Next is establishing governance. The model that I have on the slide here is a model that's been successfully utilized in many tourism communities. It illustrates that the leadership of the community exists to support the community as a whole. Having an active tourism committee, as I briefly noted before, in place is one of the keys to success. In this example, the community owns the tourism enterprise. A separate standing tourism committee is selected by the community's leadership or its residents to operate all aspects of the tourism business on their behalf and is answerable to the community's leadership, but it operates on a daily basis independently from the governance of the community as a whole. This helps to ensure that continuity in leadership when, for example, a new community leader comes into power. Community-driven planning. The Ministry of Tourism or National Tourism Board or the tourism private sector will typically facilitate a community-driven planning process to help with the business and action planning I noted earlier. In this process, the community defines the type and level of tourism that they want, what that type of tourism in the village looks like in the future as a result, basically outlining their vision within a predetermined timeline. It then, once that vision is in place, defines what its goals and priorities are and works with optimally the National Tourism Board and any private sector partners to develop a plan to achieve those goals that ultimately lead to the realization of the shared vision that is defined by optimally the community as a whole. Product development. There are a lot of different types of tourism products that travelers want, and trends are always changing, so it's great to stay on top of those. Most market demand for community tourism, however, falls into the 5 categories I have noted on my slide: meals and food, transportation, accommodation, handicrafts, and tours and experiences. So how do we go about product development? This slide illustrates that process. First, assess the unique wildlife, natural, and cultural heritage aspects that the community wants to share with visitors. Also, it's important to identify what they hold sacred and they don't want to share externally, so that that is not included in the offering. And then once they have determined what they want to share, matching those natural and cultural attractions with what tourists for that particular destination want, and again, ensuring that what is being proposed to be offered is different than what is being offered in neighboring communities, so that there's a incentive for travelers to visit different communities within an existing circuit because they offer different services. And then lastly, developing tourism activities that are experiential. I noted earlier the growing market demand for experience-based travel that basically engages all 5 senses. So traditional tourism, you see it, you hear about it, check the box, and you move on to the next attraction. Experiential, it engages seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and not only touching, but actively participating in the experience. Ongoing training and mentorship are critical, as noted. This includes introductory training programs that provide the required knowledge to lead select activities. Many national tourism boards provide training in business management and marketing, reservations and bookings, hospitality and visitor welcome, tour guiding, tour packaging, food safety and catering. All those are, I think, pretty mandatory in a lot of communities, particularly those that don't have prior experience in travel and tourism. And then peer-to-peer training. I just want to underline the importance of this. Teams from successful community tourism enterprises can visit the community that wants to offer tourism and provide them training. They can also host trainings from other communities to work alongside their tourism staff to learn from them firsthand in shadowing trainings, for example. This type of training is also offered through the tourism private sector in many destinations, the shadowing training and peer-to-peer. So that's worth looking into and exploring as well. Next, establish market linkages, marketing and promotions. There are a few key ways that most communities market their tourism offerings: through a destination management company, tour operator, tour outfitter, or local guides. That's really the easiest way to establish market linkages by building relationships with local providers that will end up selling your product. Two, in collaboration with local partners to create packages and market together. Community might look at neighboring communities, I think I mentioned, as a competitor, but they should actually look at them as a partner because they're going to be stronger together, and typically they are in one geographical area, so a tourist doesn't differentiate one community and another necessarily, but rather looks at them as being in an area or region they're going to and wanting to experience more of the best of what that region has to offer. And then the third way is directly to consumers through the internet. The National Tourism Board, for example, can help the community tourism enterprise work through the different platforms that are available to market their accommodation offerings and experiences based on what's suitable for the markets in which the destination is pursuing. Monitoring and reporting. The last step in the community tourism development process synopsis that I'm sharing with you. While many communities need help setting up systems to track the impact of tourism on the community, it's most important that communities themselves define what those priority metrics are that they themselves wish to measure. The simple system that I've outlined on the slide here is designed to help the community track the most important things that most communities are interested in. How much money is generated from tourism? How and where is that money spent? And what are the tangible benefits that the community is receiving? And with that covered, I'd like to just briefly share a few case studies. These case studies are from a nonprofit by the name of the Planetara Foundation that has supported community tourism development in more than 100 communities in more than 50 countries around the world, which over the first 5 years of their work in this space collectively received 700,000 travelers, again, across 100 community tourism enterprises, and $10 million in gross revenues, and the businesses had 100% success rate. One of the reasons Planetara has been so successful is they work with international outbound tourism operators like G Adventures and a host of other partners where they look at the market demand of those partners and find communities that can meet that market demand. To my examples, first, Zimbabwe. They have faced high levels of unemployment, yet many women form co-ops for services like tailoring and catering. However, their incomes often stay low, highlighting the need for funding, training, and access to a much broader customer base. Planetara partnered with a group by the name of Princess Sewing and Laundry Co-op in a township, providing them with a grant to facilitate business growth and comprehensive training, and also assisted, importantly, in offering laundry services to their local tourism partners. So bringing in a tourism line of revenue and expanding the cooperative's customer base. This has enabled women to afford school fees for their children, pursue further education, and hire additional help from businesses benefiting both family and other community residents and businesses in the community. Soazara in Madagascar is the second case study I'd like to briefly share with you. Madagascar's rich biodiversity is threatened by deforestation, which has destroyed 90% of the original forest for agriculture and fuel, endangering ecosystems and wildlife and the health of those ecosystem services that communities depend upon, like clean water, for example. To address this issue, the owners of a private sector business, ITC Eco Lodge, established Soazara an entity to plant trees and recreate wildlife habitats that had been degraded or destroyed by deforestation. Planetara partnered with them to create a tree planting activity for travelers staying at the lodge. Travelers get to hands-on plant their own trees in a green corridor next to the neighboring national park and learn all about reforestation and regeneration of ecosystems, which is leading to the renewal of habitat for species that are starting to return to the national park. My third and final example comes from Namibia, which has made strides in gender equality, but challenges persist. Pinduka is an entity that empowers women through training in textiles, beading, and pottery, offering opportunities at the restaurant that the enterprise operates. Planetara partnered with Pinduka, adding a restaurant visit to the itineraries for one of their travel partners. They also created a takeaway lunch for travelers that are leaving Windhoek, the capital of Namibia. And while waiting for their takeaway lunch, they learn about Pinduka and have a chance to shop for souvenirs that are made locally by the women that are involved in Pinduka. Tourism income has become vital now for Pinduka. Visitor purchases impact the lives of all the cooperative members and around 350 others through indirect and induced impacts that are contracted from the participating Namibian villages. Community tourism development. Covered a lot of information fairly quickly. One of the take-home messages I want to share with you is that you do not need to start from scratch. Look for existing tourism enterprises within your community that have a growth orientation and local entities that are improving social causes and generating positive conservation outcomes. You might end up partnering with, again, existing enterprises in your community that are involved in accommodations, transportation, food and beverage, experiences and tours, local attractions, or you might look at local nonprofit organizations, social enterprises, community-owned enterprises or associations, majority indigenous-owned small or micro enterprises and cooperatives that aren't directly involved in tourism, but are doing something good for the community, that have a story to tell, and that are in a unique position to benefit from a larger customer base by providing a tourism-aligned opportunity like those from the 3 case studies that I shared. You would then want to determine if they would benefit from accessing more customers and their level of interest in getting involved in tourism, and then work through that community development process optimally in collaboration with your local national tourist board and tourism private sector. Thank you for your participation in the Community Tourism Masterclass today. Let's work together, and I hope you are inspired to put communities at the heart of tourism in West Africa. I am available should you have any follow-on questions. Please get in touch with the event organizers. Thank you again.